And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and today we are joined by our first guest in a couple of weeks. Some of you may recognize him. He's been on the show maybe a few times, but I'm going to let him introduce himself this Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you, McHugh. My name is Joe Murphy, and I have the great honor and privilege of serving as superintendent of Livingston Parish Public Schools, and I really appreciate this opportunity to speak this afternoon.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you taking the time on a work day, first day back at school for the Mardi Gras holiday.
Oh, yeah, everybody had a good break. We're ready to go back to work now.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking about good breaks, recently there was an announcement from the governor. We're going to talk about this real quick because David Gray is also in the room, for those who didn't know. He's sitting over there taking notes. But we talked about COVID and how things seem to be finally sort of waning down, as some people will say out there, COVID, what COVID? From a certain standpoint, that makes you feel a lot better about it. Of course, the schools are rebounding from it. The governor has said that he has removed all mitigation efforts at this time.
Yes,
We're kind of hoping that public safety health emergency will fall off. Tell us a little bit about, from the school perspective, how that feels to have those mitigation efforts removed and kind of seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, at a very long 2-year tunnel here.
It has been a long journey and a long process, and I'd like to thank everybody for always supporting our schools in these mitigation efforts. We know it's been very difficult on everyone. It's been very difficult on our students, on our staff, on our parents, and on our community. But as McHugh alluded to, we believe we're nearing the end of the tunnel. We're seeing some light on it. We are really hopeful that on March 19th, the governor will remove the public health emergency. If he removes that public health emergency, that will be an exciting day in Livingston Parish, and of course it will be an exciting day in Livingston Parish Public Schools. Thank you for everyone to help us get through this. It has been a difficult task, but you've stuck by us, and we have tried to do everything we can to make sure our children are in school, and I want you to know that we're going to continue to make every effort to be sure our kids are face-to-face, right in front of our teachers, so we can educate them the way they were meant to be educated.
Well, thank you, sir. And so, of course, we are legislative session starts on March 14th. We're looking to see some kind of announcement about the public health emergency between now and then, hopefully.
Yes.
We'll see. There's a lot of rumors swirling around. I'm not going to talk about any of them specifically because they are just that, rumors. We will see what happens in the coming weeks. We do know that as of today, actually, we're below 600 hospitalizations, I believe is what you said this morning, David. Below now? Well, that's great news. That was great news. So below 500. So anyway, let's move on. We're going to be talking about specifically a renewal of a $5 million property tax that you will see on your bill every year. Anybody who has owned a home since 1952 here in Livingston Parish.
Correct.
So I wanted to bring that up. You answered that question before we started. This was initially voted on by residents of Livingston Parish in 1952 and has been renewed every 10 years since. And, of course, here we are.
Surely, yes.
2022.
It's time for our 10-year renewal. I would like to thank everybody up to this point for supporting that renewal that helps support our facilities and our funding in our facilities to make sure that we keep our facilities up to the Livingston Parish standard. McHugh, nobody wants to send their child to a school that's not well kept.
Yeah.
This millage generates approximately $3.1 million annually for our school system. And the unique thing about this millage is it applies to every school in our district. In other words, the funding for this goes to every school. It's not concentrated in one area. And as we go through and we renovate and remodel, this funding makes that possible. So I'm asking for your support of this particular millage, and as McHugh said, it will be on the ballot on March 26th, and I believe early voting starts March 12th through the 19th. So please go out and voice your opinion and hopefully your support for this millage for all our schools.
And a couple of real quick things about early voting. Please remember that is 7 days. Please remember there is no voting on Sunday.
That is correct.
So it will go through March 12th. Through the 19th with no voting on the 13th, Sunday the 13th. I've not yet heard from our registrar of voters if they will have that satellite location at the Denham Springs Walker Branch Library. I'm not sure if there's enough things on the ballot for them to do that. We're waiting to hear back from him. But let's talk a little bit about this 3.1 million. As you said, it is a district-wide tax,
It is.
and it applies to all schools.
It is.
As you also said, no school gets more of a lion's share than the other. One of the things that I wanted to do, and we mentioned it before we got into this, is maybe talk about some of the smaller schools, because they sit there and say, well, Denham gets more, Walker gets more, and to a certain extent they do, but not from this one. Mostly from their own property taxes that they passed in their own districts in the past. So, again, that renewal that we had this last fall for the sport fields at Denham is only within the Denham district.
That is correct.
This is parish-wide or district-wide, however you want to put it.
Yeah, I would like for everybody to consider something, McHugh, when they go out to cast their ballot on this, either on March 12th or the 19th or March 26th. I want you to consider for just a minute, this millage touches 26,500 children, 46 schools, and 4,000 employees. So when you cast your ballot for this, you're touching the lives of every child that goes to school in Livingston Parish Public Schools. You're supporting those facilities. And let me make one more point here before we get off too far in this, McHugh. Louisiana is one of only 11 states in the Union where the state does not provide any funding for school facilities. So we are totally dependent upon our local communities, our property taxes, and our sales taxes in order to carry forth the projects that we need to keep our schools up to the standards that our parents expect here in Livingston Parish. And that's a big deal for us.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, in order to educate the kids, they have to come to school. And in a lot of cases, you have to make sure that it's an environment fit for learning.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't focus probably enough on the environment. But when I see it, and fortunately, we've been able to complete some projects, and I've been part of that, and I've seen the excitement on children's faces as they walk into a clean facility, a painted facility, one where you've got what you need and the resources that you need at that facility. And believe me, it has a tremendous impact on their learning. And after all, isn't that kind of what we're about? Because we are about the education of children in this parish.
And I know that I had talked just a second ago about talking about the smaller schools. We'll get there. I want to make one point here when you're talking about environment. One of the things that we saw when you were involved in the process of the post-flood Denham Springs Elementary Southside Mega Campus, very involved in looking at, speculative architecture with regard to schools, visiting other schools across the country, across the state, looking at environment. And now, of course, those are new builds. Mr. St. Pierre, the principal at Walker, did the same thing when he was trying to pass his mill.
That's correct.
Looking at environment, but there have been projects where you're trying to dress up a classroom, or you're trying to get something repainted, or new lighting. These are the kind of things that enhance the environment for these kids. But y'all are also looking for new things as well.
Absolutely. One of the big initiatives we had after the flood of 2016 is we realized that we didn't have to rebuild an entire facility to upgrade the learning spaces within the existing facilities. And we spent a lot of effort looking at ways that we could upgrade our existing facilities and incorporate some of these new learning designs within our existing facilities. We've done it in several elementary schools, we've done it in middle schools, we've done it in high schools. I just can't overstate enough how important it is for a child to walk into a space where they're supposed to learn and be comfortable. Nobody wants to sit anywhere where they're uncomfortable and try to learn. And there's several evidence-based research that shows that if a child is comfortable in a space, even if it's as minor as the temperature in the room, it can have an impact on the learning on that child.
Sure. And I mean, especially these days with kids being the way that they are, call it what you will, but technology and things of that nature have made it so that holding their focus is more difficult. And having facilities that are not up to speed, up to par, or simply just clean. It makes it very problematic for teachers.
I agree, and if there was ever an affirmation of this point, about 2 weekends ago, we did a community event at our brand new facility at Denham Springs Elementary. If you could have just seen the look on people's faces and the smiles on the kids' faces as they toured that brand new facility and how they felt about that, I think everybody would understand how important this particular millage that we have coming up on the 26th of March 26th is to our school system. We absolutely must maintain high standards here in Livingston Parish. It is the expectation of our community, and we're committed to that expectation.
So let's, for a minute, get kind of we talked about making sure that these kids have good facilities, good learning environment, that kind of thing. Let's talk specifically about. Can you name a recent project that was completed? Usually, these are done over the summer, correct? These are your kind of summer construction renovation projects.
They are.
What was something that was done, say, last summer?
Well, we just completed a 4-room class addition down at 7th Ward Elementary, including bathrooms within that facility, which allowed us to expand a little bit on that campus. And 7th Ward is one of the oldest schools we have in our parish. But if you left right here, right now, and you drove to 7th Ward, you could drive up to that campus. And I'm not talking about the new addition here. I'm talking about the campus itself.
Mm-hmm.
That campus is clean. It's painted. It's well kept. And I really do believe any parent that toured that facility would be absolutely amazed. I don't remember the date 7th Ward was established, but I know it's one of the older elementary schools in our parish. And it gives me great joy when I drive up to a site. And the real question is for me, would I send my child to that site? And the answer at 7th Ward is yes, I would. But I believe, McHugh, that would approve. We just finished a major renovation project, which this $5 million would support down at Marpaw, one of our most historic buildings in our parish. We renovated that entire building. It is unique. It is an homage to the past, yet it allows us to continue education in the 21st century. So this millage supported Marpaw. Down in Springfield, we've done several improvement projects in Springfield. If you walked into Springfield High today and you walked down the halls of Springfield High, you would be amazed at some of the things that's happened at Springfield High. Springfield High is an old facility. Mm-hmm. So when we say this applies to all our schools, we truly do mean it. It does apply to all schools. I could sit here and name several other projects that would benefit from this. And let's not forget, this is something that we need for 10 years in order to keep that momentum that we've built thus far.
Sure. And it is a 10-year renewal, as we discussed. $3.1 million. So let's turn the cheek real quick, because I ask you these questions. Somebody walks up to you and says, Superintendent Murphy, I look at this $5 million. I'm thinking, I could save $150 on my tax bill every month. I got no kids in school here. I just live here. What do you tell that person to try to switch them over to a yes?
What I try to sell them is Livingston Parish Public Schools, whether you're in school at Marpaw or Live Oak or Walker or Denham or French Settlement or Springfield or Albany, our schools are embedded in our community. And when you invest in our schools, you're investing in your community. You want to help your real estate values if you're considering buying a home, if you're considering starting a business, if you're an entrepreneur looking in this area. Why would you not support the educational institution that's in place here in Livingston? Yes, I understand that not everyone has children. It's very obvious that a lot of the times some of our voting populace is a little bit older, like me. And, maybe not they have that child in school. But I bet you if I ask them, you have a grandchild in school? You have a niece? A nephew? Do you know somebody that has kids in school? So my answer to that person is, you're not investing in the school. You're investing in your community. And how could you not invest in your community?
Sure. Another interesting question. You may not have these yet. I know typically they start to be discussed this time of year, I believe. But is there any way maybe one or two projects that would be coming up this summer, or maybe next summer, since this would probably run out this year, that may be in jeopardy if this did not pass?
Yeah, I have two. I say I have. That's incorrect. We have two projects that we're trying to get off the ground now. One of them being in French Settlement, and one of them being in Springfield. There is a significant need for two new structures on those campuses. One of them located at French Settlement High, and to be honest with you, it's a band room. And we're really excited because if French Settlement High had a band, I'm unaware of it. We started the program down there a few years ago. It's grown so much. So we feel like that we need to expand that. And the only way we can expand that is to have a proper facility down at Springfield High. I know that y'all have never eaten in the cafeteria at Springfield High, but the cafeteria at Springfield High is absolutely so small that it just cannot accommodate the amount of children that we have on that campus. So we're looking at adding a cafeteria structure along with some classrooms at Springfield High. So those are two projects right off the top of my head that this millage could absolutely impact our ability to complete those projects.
Sure. And we already talked about 7th Ward Elementary here in the Denham School District.
1915. So that school's been there over 100 years.
So that's quite a while. There you go. So Mr. David Gray popped in and said 7th Ward Elementary built in 1915. So over 100, 107. There you have it. So anything else you can think of maybe in the Walker or Watson area?
Well, yes,
Okay.
we have a brand new project. Now, I wouldn't be very truthful if I said that project was dependent upon this millage because the Walker District just bonded existing sales tax money, and we're in the process of discussing and designing a brand new junior high south of the interstate in Walker, which is much needed. Mainly because we're at 2,000 kids at Walker High right now, so we have to have some room there. So while certainly a project of that magnitude would far outstrip $3.1 million, I know, and if you hadn't checked on construction costs lately, it will scare you to death. So that's another example of a project that we have going right now.
Sure. So plenty of time to vote. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap this up here?
Yeah, McHugh, we come and ask a lot of our community, and our community never disappoints us. I would hope that that's the case on this. The real cost to the individual on this is minimal. I'm not trying to belittle the cost on anything that our residents have to provide, but I would like to point out this is not increasing the cost anywhere to anybody. This is a renewal. And as we pointed out previously, it's been on our books since 1952, and our great public has renewed it every 10 years since 1952, and I would sure hope that they would continue that process when this item comes to ballot on March 26, 2022.
Excellent, sir. If you would please introduce yourself as we head on out the door, and I'll read back the stats in a second.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of Livingston Parish Public Schools. Thank you for our public who supports our schools. And remember, when you support the schools, you're supporting your community. And in this case, on this millage, you're supporting the entire community of Livingston Parish. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm very appreciative.
Well, thank you, sir, for taking the time this afternoon to stop by the office and speak with us. Again, Superintendent Joe Murphy talking about a $5 million renewal coming up for early vote. That would be March 12th through 19th. No voting on the 13th. That's Sunday. Comes standard. And the actual vote will be on Saturday the 26th. So please go out and vote. I mean, either way, having your response tallied tells the school board a lot, and they want to hear from you. So go out, hit the polls, and vote. Again, this will be raising roughly $3.1 to $3.2 million for the school system. $5 million property tax. They use it for renovations, maintenance, and sometimes a little bit of expansion. So we will be looking for those new projects coming up this summer and in the future if you all decide to renew that out there. Again, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you all joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Please remember that we are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. Once again, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.